So I want to share a little bit of a topic that I'm really passionate about. We're gonna read some verses that really haven't been read very often. At least I haven't heard them read and covered for quite some time. And I think there's a reason for that. It's kind of like, Romans, was it Romans 12:4? About the renewed mind. It's a very sensitive topic for a lot of us because of where we came from. And it was utilized in the wrong way. And some of these verses that we're going to read tonight were also utilized in a wrong way, and turned people off. And other churches, not just where a lot of us came from, but other churches also use them similarly. In fact, I shared some of this about a month and a half ago. And one of the people that were there at the teaching called me, and we were discussing the teaching, and this person, wonderful believer. And it was just, they were very gut level honest with me and just said, a lot of those verses were dead to me. And they are not anymore. Because it was looking at them from a different perspective, understanding them in a fresh way, I hope. But if I titled this teaching, I would call it Giving Grace. And I'm passionate about giving. I was raised to give. My family was big on Southern hospitality. And my mother, if you came to my mother's house, the first thing she asked is, "Are you hungry? Have you eaten?" And almost to a fault. I mean, it was just a very loving thing in my family to care for others and to give. I've shared before that my dad raised a garden, and we had a family of 4. He'd plant 12 zucchini plants. If you've ever planted a zucchini plant, a family only needs 1, and he would end up with just gobs and gobs of zucchini. And he'd walk up and down our street and give it to everybody on both sides of the street as far as he could, walk. And then the next day he'd have more, and he'd start doing the same thing, and then get mad because nobody wanted it anymore. Their refrigerators were already full. It was humorous, but he would do that with all the produce that he grew. He grew an abundance of produce, and his garden, I've never been able to mimic it. It was pristine. Everything was just huge. Everything flourished in his garden. It was really wonderful. I don't know if I shared this. I think I did. He had a buddy that also had a wonderful garden. And we'd go up to his house. His nickname was Beauregard. I don't know where he got that from, but we'd go up to Beauregard's house, and we'd be sitting in lawn chairs on the edge of the garden. He had these gorgeous peach trees. I mean, his peaches were the size of a softball and just juicy as can be. And Dad would ask Beauregard, "Hey, love to have some of your peaches, Beauregard. How much you getting for your peaches this year?" He said, "Oh, Wayne, man, the peaches are expensive this year." He says, "Yeah, I'm getting like $1 a piece." Now this is in the 70s, right? And my dad go, "Well, fair price, okay." Then he'd tell me, "Dennis, go pick us a dozen peaches." I go walking over, pick up a dozen peaches, bring them back to the lawn chair, sit down, and say, "My cucumbers haven't done too well, Beauregard. How about yours?" So I got great cucumbers. "What are you getting for your cucumbers?" And he'd give him a price. Dad would send me out in the garden, get these cucumbers, bring them back. This would go on for several hours, just sitting there, going through like the entire garden. So at the end, finally, and I just want to go home, right? And at the end, finally, Dad would say, "Beauregard, how much do I owe you?" Beauregard look at him, "Well, let me think here. 2, 12, 7, 8, 20, about $30, Wayne. Is that too much? Dad said, nope. Reach in his wallet, pull out $30, give it to Beauregard, and give him $40 worth of change. It was the weirdest thing on the planet. It was just a game that they played. And it was because they loved each other and they just gave. They just gave to each other. It was absolutely beautiful to watch now that I have grown up and recount those incidents. But when it comes to giving, who really started it all? Who put this whole concept of giving together? You all know this verse, John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. And there was a benefit in that giving, that whoever believed in him would not perish, but have life in the age to come. It could have been real easy for God to say, I'm not giving you my only begotten son. Are you crazy? He's my only begotten son. Go find your own Savior. You're the ones that screwed this all up. Why should I give you my only begotten son? You figure it out. If you don't figure it out, we'll just push the restart button, and start all over again. He could have easily said that, but he didn't, because out of his love, he gave. He gave. It's a huge deal. And he's the one that instituted the whole concept of giving. Look at Luke chapter 6. So now you know what I'm going to talk about. So I hope your ears just didn't close. Open them back up. Luke chapter 6. You know this. I think you know this record also. None of this is new. Verse 37. It's under the heading of judging and hypocrisy. But Jesus is talking, he says to his disciples, do not judge, and you will absolutely not be judged. And do not condemn, and you will absolutely not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Give, and it will be given to you. Not just given to you, but good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. What a great band they were. If you knew of them, awesome music, kind of like the Christian Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. But give, and it be given to you. Pressed down, or good measure, pressed down, shaken together. Not just a little bit of flour in the bag. I mean, press it down, shake it together, compact it, fill it up, run it over here, in the marketplace. They will give into your lap. Who will? People will. They will give into your lap. For with whatever measure you measure, it will be measured to you again. Really interesting. We should know this principle. We should be living by this principle every single day, because you see it on the planet every single day. You see it all the time. That as you give, you flourish. A farmer knows that. Anybody that's grown a garden knows that. Even a poor garden like me, you still know that, because you put one seed in the ground. You put one seed of corn in the ground. You don't just get to stalk with this boom, big kernel of corn sticking off the side of it. No, if it's a really good harvest, you'll get 2 beautiful ears, maybe really long ears with a whole bunch of kernels on it. You get a lot more than what you stuck in the ground. Same with tomatoes. You put one seed, you get a whole bunch of tomatoes, and there's gobs of seed. And I love tomatoes, juicy, ripe tomatoes. I love them. Anybody that has grown anything realizes that as you give, as you plant, as you sow, you're going to reap. you are going to reap. And they also know that, if you want to harvest beets, you don't plant carrots, you plant beets. You end up sowing or reaping the things that you sow. If a person sows hatred in their life, they will reap that type of stuff in their life, and the wages of that. If they plant love, if they give love, they're going to reap the benefits of that love in their life. And here we're talking about giving, though, specifically. Give, and it'll be given to you. It works. Every farmer knows that. I was had a friend and his wife. They wanted to redo their bathroom. They lived in a real tiny, beautiful little tiny brick house, but it was all plaster, the old type plaster walls. And they didn't know what to do. So we really want to redo this bathroom, get as much out of it as we can. It was a pretty small bathroom. And, I'm a carpenter and I know how to do drywall and, all that. And I said, well, I'll give you a hand. I'll do it for you. It was a small enough bathroom that two people couldn't work in it anyways. And I said, so I'll do it. So I went over there night after night. I'd leave work. I had an extra pair of clothes in the truck. I'd just go to their house, change my clothes, and start working. I'd work until 9 o'clock at night, and then I go home. I tore all the old plaster off the walls, checked out the electrical, made sure everything was good, started hanging new drywall, did a few other things, tape, finish, let them paint it. Got done. I don't remember how long I worked there. It was, many days. And by this time, it was in August. Pretty sure it was in August that I got it done. And I looked, I mentioned to the gentleman, my friend, I said, hey, I noticed that your wife's got some sweet corn out front. And she had a big mound of it. And she sold her vegetables. And I said, he said, oh, yeah. She's selling it $2 a dozen. Buy as much as you want. And I kind of stopped in my tracks, and I thought about it. And at first I was upset. At first I was kind of taken back by it, really, you want me to buy your corn? I just spent, several weeks remodeling your bathroom for you. And then I realized that was the wrong attitude for me to have. That was wrong. Because I had decided to give. I had decided to do this on my own, to give them this time, energy, and materials. And whether they reciprocated or not was not on my shoulders. God would reward me in another way. His grace would abound in my life in another way. So for me to get angry and me to be upset was the wrong response. And it would have been, it would have been counterproductive. And so I changed my thinking. I mean, this pressed down, shaken together, running over thing. There's a guy, a farmer close by that I buy a lot of produce from. His produce is amazing. His red bell peppers, I am not kidding you, are this big. They're like small footballs. They're the sweetest red bell pepper you'll ever put your teeth into. And his corn, every time I go see him, his last name is Gilmore. Everybody just knows him as Gilmore. And every time I go get corn from him, I say, Gilmore, I swear you put sugar in the trench with the seed, because there's nobody else has sweeter corn than you. All of his produce just, I'm not kidding you, flourishes. And not millions, but oodles of people go to buy his produce. And he's the most giving of anybody that I've ever bought produce from. His dozens are 14 years to begin with, not 13, not a baker's dozen. It's better than a baker's dozen, 14 to a dozen. And when my wife and I buy corn from him, we like to freeze corn in the summer. And then you have this fresh tasting corn all winter long. And we'll do about 20 quarts, and 7 ears of corn go into a quart. So you can do the math. We're buying about 140 ears of corn. And I always go there. I'll help him pack these nylon bags, or nylon mesh bag. Help him pack them, count them out. And I make sure I don't cheat him. I'm not going to cheat the man. He's, the labor is worthy of his hire, right? We're done. That's that's 140 years. We're done. That's what I bought from you. No, put some more in there. Fill that bag up. And I'll take 2, and he pulls 10, and I'll take 2 more, and I look at him, he pulls 10 more, and he just stuffs the bags full. That's the pressed down, shaken together, running over. He's just a wonderful, wonderful farmer. What a great guy. And so the lesson there from Luke 6, that's the way I should give also. That's the way I should give in my life. Go back to Genesis 14. You all know this record. If you're there, Genesis 14, we start in verse 17. This is a record about Melchizedek and Abram. Abram just came back from rescuing Lot and several other people that were taken captive from the city of Sodom, and they were taken north. Then after his return from the defeat, because he went there with his army to defeat this king and other kings, when he had heard that Lot, his nephew, had been taken captive along with other people, he's gathered up his army, marched north, and rescued Lot and the rest. And so it says, verse 17, then after his return from the defeat of, I had to look this up. How do you pronounce this guy's name? I'm looking at it and I'm like, I'll butcher this one. I can't pronounce this. So I had to look it up. It's Kedor Laomar. And it doesn't look like it sounds that way. But anyway, that's who he is. And the kings who were with him, the king of Solomon went out to meet. After he comes back, the king of Sodom went out to meet him at the valley of Sheva, that is the king's valley. Melchizedek, king of Salem, which Salem is the ancient name for Jerusalem. So this Melchizedek is the king of Jerusalem prior to it being, a part of Israel. I mean, it's a part of, it's like a Canaanite city. But Melchizedek brought out bread and wine. And it would do well if you would read the commentary, the REV commentary about this whole record, because John gives a lot of background that fills in some of the blanks and the gaps. Why just bread and wine? John talks about that, but he brings out bread and wine. And he was priest of God Most High, of Yahweh. He's a priest in Jerusalem of Yahweh, not a priest according to the Levitical priesthood. This is way before the Levitical priesthood. He is a priest of Yahweh, though. Obviously, then God recognizes him as priest, right? Or it wouldn't say that in the Bible. He blessed him. Melchizedek blessed Abraham. I wonder if God told him to go out and meet Abram on the road. Probably so. And he said, blessed be Abram of God Most High, possessor of heaven and earth. And blessed be God Most High, who has given your enemies into your hand. So Abram gave him a tenth of all the spoils of the war. 10%? Are you kidding me? That is a huge amount. He gave him 10% of everything. Now, this is not the institution of the Levitical law tithe. So don't even go there with me. It's not the tithe. Tithe means 10. That's what the word means. This is way before that. But he gives. Abram just says, oh, cool. And he gives him all this. He blessed him and said, oh, we read that, didn't we? That's a huge cut. I mean, he's got over 380 soldiers with him. They all deserve a piece of the pie, plus some other people from Sodom who went and told him that Lot had gotten captured and carried off. So there's a whole lot of mouths to feed out of the spoils of war. But so a tenth, it's a huge cut. The king of Sodom said to Abram, oh, give me the people and take the goods to yourself. Abram said to the king of Sodom, I have lifted up my hand and sworn to Yahweh, God Most High, possessor of heaven and earth. He says the same thing that Melchizedek did, that I will not take a thread nor a sandal strap. That's so funny. I won't even take one of your sandal straps, nor anything that is yours, lest you should say, I have made Abram rich. I will accept nothing from you except what the young men have eaten, and their share of the share of the spoil of the men who went with me in there, Eshcol and Marmeh. Let them take their share. Definitely read the commentary because we don't have time to go through it, but it's really beautiful. Read this whole record back up and read about how Lot got captured and why Abram went and saved him. But Abram could have been proud, and he had every right to be proud. He just defeated a whole bunch of kings and got all these spoils, and he's hauling them back home. He could have been very proud for that. After winning that battle, saving his nephew and saving other people, that's something to be proud of, maybe. He could have said, thanks for blessing me, Malky. Thanks for blessing me. That was really great. Cool. But these spoils are mine. I worked hard for these spoils. It cost me a lot to get these spoils. I took 380 some guys 270 miles north, about 12 days march, fought a war, gathered up all this stuff, and I'm marching 12 days back to Hebron. It cost me a lot. I had to feed these guys. I had to take care of these guys. I had to make sure they stayed alive and healthy and strong, ready for battle. Nah, this is my stuff. I'm sorry. I can't. Sorry. I can't do anything for you. No, instead, Abram was humble. He was humble in the situation. Humble enough so that he shared the spoils of war with Melchizedek because he recognized Melchizedek as a priest of God who had done nothing for it except blessing. Blessed be Abram or Abram. It's a pretty cool record when you really sit down and think and try to play it out in your mind, how that all went down. Look at 1 Peter chapter 5, please. Abram was humble. He gave without expectation. Verse 5 of Peter 5, 1 Peter 5. In the same way, you who are younger, submit to the elders. And all of you, elders too, must clothe yourselves with humility. This is really a beautiful phrase. Because to clothe yourselves with humility That word clothe and this whole phrase, it's not like putting on a jacket in the morning and then you get home in the evening and you take the jacket off. That's not the way this word clothe is used. Something that you put on and then take it off later. I don't need it right now. So, but I'll put it back on if I need it, right? No, this is a phrase that in the culture meant you became that which you were clothed with. It wasn't just something you put on and then took off. You became that. Linsky, in his commentary on this verse, he relates this humbleness and clothed yourselves with humility. He relates that to the apron that the slaves would wear while serving others. The apron identified who the slave was. He's there to serve. He was the apron. The apron was him. It identifies him, and he became what the apron represents: service, servitude, humility. Clothe yourselves with humility towards one another, because God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. It's also spoken in Proverbs 3:34, where it says, he mocks at the mockers, but gives grace to the humble. It's also quoted in James 4:6, 3 times. God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Giving is an act of humility. You have to be humble in order to give. Because if you're not humble, you're going to look at those spoils of your work, of your labor, of your life. No, these are mine. I earned these. I earned these. These are mine. I spent my time canning vegetable soup. I bought a case of my favorite pretzels, because you can't buy them anywhere here in Ohio, other than you can buy them. You got to get them online. They're the best pretzels in the world. My complaint about pretzels is there's not enough salt on them. What is a pretzel without salt? It's just a piece of burnt dough. Got to have salt on a pretzel. And these pretzels made by Grippos in Cincinnati, they're loaded with salt, and they're dark, and they're beautiful pretzels. And so I get them online, or I have my wife order them, and you got to order 12 bags at a time. Okay. They're my pretzels. So I take a bag to work, right? And okay, I'll take them around the office. Hey, have a few pretzels. Have a few pretzels, have a few pretzels. By noon, the pretzels are gone. There are no more pretzels. So the next day, bring in 2 more bags. And I've taken in 4 bags already, and I just got them this past weekend. But why not? I can give. I can bless somebody's life. I can, God gives grace to the humble. How do you think he does that? What does that look like? How does he give grace? I mean, he gives grace to you. How? You wake up in the morning and just poof, it's in the closet. Or, grace hanging on a coat hanger. I mean, that could happen. Certainly could happen. God has made things appear before. But what's another way that he gives grace to the humble? You are one of those means. You are one of the ways that God gives grace to the humble. Look at Luke chapter 2, or 21 rather. Luke 21. Another beautiful record. Verse 1 of chapter 21. And he, Jesus, looked up. He saw the rich people who were putting their gifts into the treasury. Made sure that it clinked in the side of the coffer. And he saw a certain poor widow putting 2 leptons. John says that those leptons are a coin that in today's monetary system be worth about 50 cents a piece. So she puts $1 in there, $1 into it. And he said, of a truth I say to you, talking to his disciples again, of a truth I say to you, this poor widow put in more than they all. For all these put in gifts out of their abundance, and the gifts they were given were little out of their abundance. But she, out of her poverty, has put in all she has to live on. Wow. It took humility for her to do that. It took trust. It took faith for her to do that. She had to trust that Yahweh would extend grace to her for her to take that action. She had to trust that Yahweh would care for her. And she did that out of humility and never looked back. I hear a lot of people our age, my age, use a phrase, say something. And I heard this many, many years ago too, with some elderly believers that I had the privilege of serving. And he said, yeah, but we're on a fixed income. God is not a fixed income. Yahweh is not a fixed income. It says in the Bible, he's got cattle on 1,000 hills. All he has to do is sell one for you. God is, he's not a fixed cash flow. He gives grace to the humble, and it takes humility to give. Grace, what is grace? A divine favor, a favor. Hey, kid, how many of you have ever asked, hey, Dave, Carol, I need a favor. I need a favor. God's in the favor business. He likes doing that. He started it all out. God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten son. Incredible gift. Go to 2 Corinthians 8. These were the verses that the person told me. Those verses were dead to them. And I understand that. But I want you to see these verses in a whole different light. 2 Corinthians 8. We'll start in verse 1. We're not going to read all of it. In order to get the full context of what's going on here, you got to read chapters 8 and 9 and a little bit of the book of Acts and some of Galatians. But Paul's on his 3rd missionary trip. He's going around the churches, and he had already told them all, start collecting, set aside money every first day of the week. Set aside whatever you have, because I'm going to come through, I'm going to collect it, and I'm heading to Jerusalem. I'm taking it to Jerusalem for the saints who are under pressure because another famine had broke out in Jerusalem. That's the background of what's going on here. And you can put all that together by reading and see it. But 2 Corinthians 8, verse 1, moreover, brothers and sisters, he's writing now to the Corinthians. We want to make known to you the grace of God that has been given among the churches of Macedonia. Because he had told the Macedonians to do this, and they had been doing it. They had been doing this for a year now, setting aside their plurality. It didn't have to be just money. It doesn't say that it was money. That would have been the easiest thing for Paul to carry. But it could have been grain. It could have been maple syrup. I don't know. You know, it could have been whatever their plurality was, because he's going to carry that all the way to Jerusalem. He's going to have a lot of people helping him too. He's not going alone. But what this grace that has been given among the churches of Macedonia, that in a severe test of affliction, it might not have been easy for them to do this. You know, they were under a test of affliction. They were under pressure and persecution also. But the abundance of their joy and their deep poverty overflowed into the riches of their generosity. For I testify, on their own, they gave according to their ability and even beyond their ability, imploring us, begging us with much pleading in regards to this grace. What's the grace that he's talking about? What's this grace of God that he's talking about? We'll get there. And the participation in the service to the holy ones. This has nothing to do about tithing. Absolutely nothing. And to make it about tithing is a bastardization of the scriptures. It has nothing to do with that. And they gave, not as we had expected, but they first gave themselves to the Lord and to us by the will of God. Consequently, in other words, when they gave themselves to the Lord, they dedicated themselves to this mission, to doing this. Consequently, we urge Titus, as he had previously begun, that he should also complete among you this act of grace as well. Chapter 2, or chapter 9. Verse 6, I love this. Consider this. Think about this. Consider this. Here we go, right back in the same context, right back to the farmer. Whoever sows sparingly also reaps sparingly. Can you argue with that? Nope. Can't argue with it. It's true. Happens every day. And whoever sows bountifully also reaps bountifully. Can't argue with that either. Let each one give as he has previously decided in his heart. Now, this is with respect to a specific situation, right? The saints in Jerusalem were in desperate need of help. They were starving. They needed food. They needed provisions. They probably needed clothing. They might have needed a whole lot of stuff, but they needed help. He says, as you previously decided in your heart, which they had when he was first there, not grudgingly, not because I'm telling you have to, nor of necessity. God loves a cheerful giver. He loves somebody that just wants to do this. Wants to give away. You know, I make soup. I love my vegetable soup. I think my vegetable soup's the best vegetable soup in the world. I love it. It takes, my wife tells me I should enter it into the fair. That and my pickled beets. But I love doing this stuff. To me, cooking for people and doing that is an act of love. And so I love, and she'll ask me, Why do you make all this stuff? You give half of it away. That's the reason. That's the fun of it. That's the beauty of it. I can watch the smile on somebody's face. But anyway, not grudgingly or necessity. God loves a cheerful giver. And God is able to make all grace come in abundance to you because of their giving. So that always, having sufficiency in everything, you can have abundance for every good work. Part of that is giving good work. As it's written, he has scattered abroad and he has given to the poor. His righteousness endures forever. And he who is supplying seed to the sower and bread for food will supply and multiply your seed for sowing and increase the harvest of your righteousness. You will be enriched in every way so that you can be generous on every occasion, which through us is producing thanksgiving to God. For the service of this ministry, this action that they were taking, is not only supplying the needs of the Holy One, but overflows by means of many thanksgiving to God, not just for the Holy One, but others who are going to benefit from it also. Because of the proof given by this service, they will glorify God for your obedience to your confession of the good news of Christ, and for the generosity of your contribution to them and to all, while they themselves also, with prayers on your behalf, yearn for you because of the surpassing grace of God on you. And it's cool that Paul ends it with this, a reminder. Thanks be to God for his indescribable gift. For God so loved the world that he gave. When you give, you are an extension of God's grace. You are extending that grace to others. And in response, grace abounds in your life so that you have more to give. So that you can be generous in every situation. There's so many ways that we can give to those that are in need. And if you're in need, you need to let somebody know. But one of the things you can do if you are in need, sounds crazy, give. Give. So that God's grace abounds in your life. And then you can give again and again and again. And it becomes a blast. I could go on and give you all kinds of incidents, but I'm not. I won't belabor the point. Live to give. And practice that humility. And don't think that you're on a fixed income. Because God is not a fixed source of supply. Amen?